on this live stream. On this Sunday evening at 6 o'clock. We're so happy to have you as part of our I guess I can call it our broadcast, because we've been doing this now for a long time. It's not an experiment anymore. It's real. It is a true live stream broadcast on Sunday night that you can also go back and look at on Facebook and YouTube and other places, other sources for in the future if you can't join us tonight live. But we thank God for our live audience, those who've been enjoying us every Sunday night, listening to us every Sunday night. We appreciate you. And this is a Bible ministry. This ministry called Pearls of Living. And Pearls of Living is presenting a series called Pearls of Wisdom. And through Pearls of Wisdom, we've been trying to bring you some of the very best people with the very best resources across Minneapolis, St. Paul, and across the United States. This is what we've been able to do. Our goal is to connect people with the best possible resources to help you in living. So therefore, we give you wisdom on how to live. That's why the series came about, Pearls of Wisdom through Pearls of Living. We give you great wisdom on life. And when it's all said and done, you realize that we are better together. That's what all it boils down to. Tonight, we have a very special guest. We're going to bring with you tonight an honored guest, and we are very fortunate to have him with us tonight. But just before I get to that, I want to just a few things. In this Christmas season, I want to prepare you. We're going to be doing some things in the next couple of weeks dealing with Christmas. And I'm going to actually give a Christmas message. You may want to put this on your calendar on the third Sunday night at 6 o'clock during this time. I'm going to give a Christmas message. And I'm going to even tell you where it's coming from. It's going to come from Micah chapter 5. That's what we're preparing for. Micah chapter 5 in the Old Testament. And it might come as a surprise to you, but the Bible gives us the meaning of the Christmas season. That may be a surprise to somebody. The Bible actually gives us the meaning of the Christmas season. And that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at the meaning of the Christmas season and how the prophet Micah foretold Bethlehem as the birthplace of the Messiah. And we're going to give you some references to Christmas that he made. He was saying in chapter 5 in particular that Christ will be born in Bethlehem. And he gives us in these verses, he tells us what Jesus came to do. And he came to be a shepherd to his flock. We're going to explore that. And we're going to talk about how he came to take care of us, how he came to lead us, to protect us, to save us. And he came to be our shepherd. We're going to talk about that on the third Sunday evening. So you may want to tell your family, your friends, that Billy G. Russell is going to be preaching a Christmas message on the third Sunday night at 6 o'clock, right here at Pearls of Wisdom. So let us begin tonight with a word of prayer, and then I'm going to tell you about some other great things that God is doing. God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for how you've blessed us on this wonderful day. You've been good and you're still good. And therefore, right now, we give you praise, we give you honor, we give you all the glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, just before we get to our guests, I want you to take note of this. Something has really come to pass that we've been praying about and hoping for. Although we've been doing mostly Sunday night stuff at 6 o'clock, but coming in January, put this on your calendar right now, coming in January, I'm going to give you a portion of what we're looking for, what's going to happen in January. In about mid-January, I'll give you exact dates next Sunday, but we're going to have Dr. Elliot Mallory Green, Professor Green, is going to be doing a 5-week study, 5-week online study. This was going to be online, starting, right now it's looking like it's going to be the middle part of January, the third week in January, probably doing the week after Dr. King's birthday. But we have come together and we have actually come up with some things we're going to talk about for 5 weeks. And let's give you an example. For 5 weeks, we're going to talk about the baptism of Jesus and the war in the wilderness. We're going to talk about signs of the kingdom, miracles, exorcism, and preaching. And he's going to talk about the backstory to the origin of demons. and then the victory of Jesus, the battle for the body of Christ. Those are going to be, that's 5 different lessons we're going to talk about. And what you're going to learn, one of these main things is, look, where did all this come from? I mean, demons, where did they come from? I mean, they was not present in the Old Testament. We did not hear about it in the Old Testament, but as Jesus shows up on the scene, then next thing we see demons. Not a professor. I had to get to call him professor because he's definitely a professor. Professor Green is going to lead us in a very profound study on demons and how Jesus confronted them and how he continued until the victory. So if you want to take part in that class, now right now what we're going to do is it's going to be, I hate to say limited, but we're going to have to look, probably cut it down to at least the first 100 people. So we don't have the registration form tonight, but it may be a good thing if you want to take part in a class like that. It might be good if you go ahead on and begin to put it in the chat, should I say, that this is a class I would love to take. Put your name up there, and we'll make sure we go ahead and at least see that there are people who are interested in this class before we actually do the release on everything that's coming up. So it is, I am so excited about it until, you know, I was tempted to tell you some other things, but trust me when I say it will probably be one of the best classes you'll ever experience for the kind of, should I say, I don't want to say kind of money you be paying, because the kind of donation you would give, you will never get anything else this great like you're going to get for Dr. Green doing a 5-week session. Professor Green is going to lead us in a study about Jesus. So we're going to do that for 5 weeks. And after that 5 weeks is over, we're going to pick up there and go another 5 weeks going on into the Resurrection Sunday. So this is kind of where we are right now. I want to just kind of give you a heads up, and here we go. So thank God for you. Now I'm actually looking for, we got our great cousin here tonight with us, who actually, he came to Minnesota. He actually been to Greater Friendship. He came to Greater Friendship, and actually we had a chance to share with him, should I say twice? Been in Minnesota probably twice, or maybe more. And we was doing everything we could to get him on the National Baptist Convention stage. But the National Baptist Convention stage was so tight when we brought it here to the Twin Cities. It was, I didn't have much wiggle room to bring anybody, but I tried to bring everybody in that I could possibly get. And after we didn't have the wiggle room to bring our guests in tonight, I said we're gonna do everything we can now to still put him on the stage. All this young man needs is a stage, but he has the work, he has the story, he has the information, and I want to bring him to you tonight at Pearls of Living to show you that this young man has done a whole lot and has got a whole lot he can give to us here in the Twin Cities and across the world. And I'm talking about none other than my cousin, all the way from initially. And I didn't know, Shane, that it was you in Slidey at 9 years old. I mean, nine months old. I read the book and I said, oh, I remember him playing the drums, the Macedonian, all that kind of good stuff, but I didn't realize he was just 9 months old when he actually went to stay with his grandmother. But tonight we have Shane Foster, my cousin, my friend, superstar. Should I say superstar? We followed him, a dynamic basketball player. I think, Shane, you're about what, 6'8", 6'9", 6'20", whatever. I know you're a tall, talented, gifted young man, and we are honored to have you with us tonight. And we wanted to show to the world that you're a part of this team, that we can help bring resources to your table or to your facility. And it's not just a resource, but a tremendous resource. So Shane, tonight, tell everybody who you are.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited Every time I get an opportunity to engage, to share, especially with family, it's a huge blessing to be able to do so. I'm Shane Foster. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Fostering Healthy Solutions, which is a consulting firm that's helping businesses, corporations, large and small across the country with their workplace culture, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Prior to that, I helped to build a nonprofit initiative called Men Together. And that is engaging men to end violence against women and girls. And we've done that literally across the country as well, because what we found is that there's so many resources and opportunities for shelter and services and counseling for women and children who are leaving domestic violence relationships, but there hasn't been much for men. And the reality is that violence doesn't stop unless men get involved and get engaged, and we teach younger men how to value and respect women and girls. So we built out a curriculum and an entire program around doing that around the country as well. I did play basketball in my day. I'm still the all-time leading scorer in Vanderbilt basketball history. My jersey will actually be retired at Vanderbilt on February the 5th. So I'm excited about that. Hopefully my cousins can come down and celebrate with us. It's a huge deal, not only for myself, but for my family and really everybody that played a significant role in helping me become the man that I am today. So excited about that. I'm an author. So you see my book here, What Hurt Didn't Hinder, and really just sharing my life story, all the trials and tribulations that I've gone through, the importance of faith and family and community. It takes a village to raise a child, and I was fortunate to have a village around me to help instill some perseverance as they went through a number of things. But this is really a memoir, and it really just shares that no matter what you go through in your life, that just because things hurt, it doesn't have to hinder what God has in store for you. And so just being an encouragement to people is really what I'm all about, making a difference in companies and communities across the world. And so excited to be here with you all. Thank you so much for having me.
Shane, now I noticed in the book, your Bishop Joseph Walker, he did a forward for the book.
Yeah, he did.
Talk to us about the influence of Bishop Joseph Walker. I mean, for people who don't know the Full Gospel Foundation, listen, Bishop Joseph Walker is the bishop. And for you to come up on the Bishop Joseph Walker, that says a lot about who you are as a person. I respect Bishop Walker to the highest, and looked like he respected you and you respected him so much. So can you just talk a minute about him before we dive in here?
Absolutely. One of the things that was important to me when I was a freshman at Vanderbilt was to really surround myself with people that could help me to stay grounded, but most importantly, to help steer me in the right direction. You know, when I went to Vandy, I was, number 9 small forward in the country coming out of high school. And I was supposed to, take this team to even higher heights. And there's a lot of, I knew there was going to be a lot of temptation and a lot of things I would have to go through and learn, but I didn't want to lose the core of who I am. So I reached out to Bishop Walker. He's the pastor of Mount Zion Baptist Church, the mother church of Full Gospel. And Bishop Joseph Walker is the presiding bishop over Full Gospel International. And so I reached out to him. I didn't think he was actually going to respond, but he did. And took me under his wing. He's mentored me, has been my mentor since my freshman year in high school in 2004. And he played a tremendous role in my life, just holding me accountable, showing me that, that you can excel and be a person of excellence, but not lose the common touch of people and really caring about people and not getting so big based on your success that you forget where you come from. He's a person of integrity, but he's also a person of very, very high standards. He believes in excellence in every single area of his life, not only just how he does ministry, but how he serves on boards in the community, how he shows up as a husband and a father, how he shows up as a mentor, how he has mentors of his own in his life. And so being up under him really gave me a foundation of manhood that was something that I could follow. And it's been a tremendous blessing. And the last thing I'll say about that is, And obviously we have many ministers in our family. The Bible talks about, God giving you a pastor after your own heart. And it's amazing when you actually have a pastor that's after your own heart. They're speaking specifically to things that you're experiencing in your life, that you're going through, confirming things that God has put into your spirit. And so, being able to sit up under, that great leadership, I'm able to experience life and my walk with Christ in a way that is really transformational. Literally every Sunday, he's up there talking about something that I'm applying back to my life, back to my work, back to my marriage, and how we even do business. And so following that foundation really has been helpful and meaningful in my life.
But Shane, thank you for that. I had a chance. I got your book off of Kindle, and it's called "What Hurt Didn't Hinder." And as I was going through that book, I thought it would be important that we just do some highlights. So to anybody who want to get a copy of that book, I want you to know it is on Amazon. And "What Hurt Didn't Hinder," and it's a great book, a great read. So I would encourage you tonight to go and download that book or order the book, and let it become a part of your life. So as I was looking at it, Shane, I remember you as a little boy at Macedonia Baptist Church, but I didn't realize how young you were when you first started at Macedonia Baptist Church. So I think it's important tonight for people to see where you are now. I think people need to know the humble beginning that you had. So can you talk to us about your foundation, as you talked about so eloquently in the book, but just tell us something about maybe your foundation, and maybe you didn't get a chance to expound on everything you wanted to in the book, but just talk about your foundation. What ground did you growing up? How did all that?
Yeah. I spent the first 6 years of my life living with my grandparents, and they were members of Macedonia Baptist Church, and obviously our great uncle, the late Reverend Russell, was the pastor of the church. And so being in church and being intimately involved in church at a young age was critical for me. And it was intentional on the part of my family. I talked a little bit about it taking a village to raise a child. That was my village. And it wasn't just my mom or grandmother holding me accountable. It was everybody in the church holding me accountable for being the kind of man that I was supposed to be, and instilling values and teaching me the power of a relationship, a personal relationship with Christ. And, so that was my foundation. And the fact that it was a family church was important, whether it was going to Macedonia or driving back to Mississippi to go to Blue Springs, we did it as a family. And so a part of my foundation is family, and the importance of family. My grandmother once told me that if you could learn to love your family as big as our family is, then it will make it easier for you to learn to love other people as well. And so as a result of that foundation, I've been able to travel literally all over the world and maintain a love and appreciation for people, to see the value that people bring to the table, regardless of what differences exist, regardless of the various diversities that come to the table, regardless of our intersectionalities, regardless of the economic situation that people are in, to see people as valuable individuals and to be able to learn and grow from people regardless of where they are in their life. That came from that foundation built for me in those first 6 years of my life. It also, was important for me to see men, godly men, worshiping and praying and believing in God and really living out their faith. Because as I would matriculate from Slidell to then being in New Orleans, for a period of time, about 10 years, I was in New Orleans during a time when New Orleans was the murder capital of the world. And I had to learn how to survive in that and still not lose my faith. Right. And as a result of that foundation, I was able to do that in ways that many people, who experienced church hurt, or they were in households where one parent went to church and the other one stayed home, or they were the same people who was preaching on Sunday was cussing everybody out on Monday. Right. Like you go through all of these different things, but my foundation is what allowed me to be able to overcome all of that and my relationship with God still be intact. Where even now I'm a deacon at Mount Zion Baptist Church underneath Bishop Walker, and serving in that community and being the feet of Jesus in that way. So it's my foundation is a huge part of who I am, how I do business, how I do my work, how I impact people. All of that really comes from having that solid foundation. It was so critical for me to have at that young age.
Shane, you said you are a deacon. You are a saved deacon at Mount Zion Baptist Church under Bishop Walker in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
That is so wonderful to hear you say. Shane Foster is a saved deacon at Mount Zion Baptist Church under Bishop Joseph Walker. That is major. So thank God for you living as you're living in spite of what you've been through, in spite of who you are right now. You still know the church is your foundation.
Yeah.
Now, as I was also reading, not only did you talk about the foundation, but you also talked about the storm, what happened, and what really how the storm had to shape you. So you talk to us some about that, how the storm, the thing that you went through, so people know that things didn't just come on a bed of ease. You got to go through something to get something. You got to go through something. So can you talk to us about the storm?
Yeah, well, actually, it's a perfect segue, because that after I left my grandparents' house at 6 years old, my mom came to get me, and she got married to this gentleman, and we went to Jackson, Mississippi for 2 years, and then we moved to New Orleans right after that. But life took a drastic turn. Not only were we in New Orleans during the time when it was the murder capital of the world, and we were still engaged in church, but I also had to engage with folks in this neighborhood who didn't grow up in church like I did, who didn't have the same values that I had, and they weren't committed to doing things the right way. In fact, there was a lot of wrong going on. There was drugs, there was alcohol, sex, there was, gangs and killing. And I mean, you name it, it was happening in New Orleans. And at home, my mom had married this gentleman who was drastically different than my biological father, drastically different than my grandfather, who I called dad, right? And what I mean by drastically different is that I witnessed domestic violence. I went through child abuse. And those were things that, oftentimes, particularly in the Black community, we say things like, what happens in our house stays in our house. So we don't talk about stuff that happens, right? In fact, when I was writing this book, it was really hard to write the book, because it was stuff that I'd never talked about. People in our family didn't even know what was going on. And we'd show up and people come and support me play basketball. They see what's going on the basketball court, but they didn't know that I was depressed and contemplating suicide and contemplating running away because of how bad things were going at home because of this one individual, right? And in the book, I talk about something called the duality of people. Unfortunately, when we think about domestic violence and sexual assault and rape and a lot of the sexual violence that's happening in many people's families, incest, all of this stuff that's happening, we want so desperately to believe that the person perpetrating that kind of violence is a monster. We want so desperately to believe that's not who my dad is, or that's not who my uncle is, or that's not who my grandfather is. We want to maintain this idea of them that's so great that we in turn create a space within the home where when things happen, we don't talk about it. And that was what happened to me. So I'm sitting there getting beat all the time. I'll never forget one night in particular when I was getting ready to run away from home. And I talk about this in the book, and he comes home early. And I end up going back into the house, and the guy ties me up with a yellow rope and literally beat me until the dogs next door, they had 6 Rottweilers, were barking, trying to jump the fence to come and get me, right? So when people see me dunking on people and scoring 30 points in a basketball game, they don't know that that's what's going on at home, right? They have no idea the things that, you see somebody who, going back to the duality of people, this is an individual who added positive value to my life. He introduced me to organized sports. He bought me my first basketball goal. He would stand outside and show me how to shoot fadeaway jump shots. He taught me how to be a role model for my brothers and sisters. He talked about how I should always love and protect my mother with everything in me. But the same person who added all that great value was the exact same person who caused the most pain. The duality of people. And it was my faith, because oftentimes when I'd be cutting the grass or I'd be, in the house by myself doing homework, I'd be sitting there the whole time having conversation with God. I'm on the basketball court running sprints, and I close my eyes and me and God just sitting there just talking, right? And that comes from my foundation, because in that moment when I'm experiencing this abuse, I hate being at home, I hate life and all this kind of stuff, you feel isolated, right? And it was just me and God. I'll never forget taking 2 entire summers and reading through the whole Bible and really getting a real life experience with God. And God taught me so much in that time period. A lot of the stuff that I do now instinctively, I can't point back to a class that I took. I can't point back to a seminar. I can't point back to an exact sermon, but it's things that God imparted into my life and downloaded into me that I use in corporate meetings, that I use in board meetings, that I use as I'm coaching executives across the country, or that I'm, things that I'll say in a keynote speech that really resonate with people. It's not that I've just been engaged in all of this learning. Some of this God taught me during those periods of time, right? And so it's that storm that I went through at that point in time. It also taught me that God can get me through that. God can get me through anything. So as I'm out here doing life as an adult now, which is drastically different than it was as a kid, things don't shake me the way they used to. Like I don't allow fear to stop me, because I know that if God could get me out of that household and allow me to accomplish things that I only dreamed about and that other kids dream about and they don't get to do, if God can bring me out of that situation and bring my mom out of that situation, my sisters and my brothers and our family still be intact, God can do anything. And so that's what I learned in that storm. Wow. Even though it might hurt, that God's plan will prevail.
So it may hurt, but it did not stop you, did not hinder you, did not stop you from being all that God created you to be.
Absolutely.
That's a message right there to everyone who's listening right now. I don't care what you are in the midst of right now. God can get you through, and you're going to be everything that God meant for you to be. You're going to be that. So, So with that in mind, you went on to talk about moving on. So what were some of the things that helped you to move on from that and to begin to realize your dream, to move on from your childhood, from the playing the drums in Macedonia to I remember you on them drums, this big tall drums. and I know they had an impact on you, playing the drums and listening to the choir sing, then use it in church every Sunday, and that all this foundational stuff. But at that point, how were you able to move on from that, all the thing that was going on and through high school, and how you landed after being one of the most sought after recruits in the nation? You decided to go to Vanderbilt. How did all that happen?
Well, a couple of things. The Bible talks about that unknowingly we entertain angels. And over the course of my life, God has put people in my life at every single stage, not just to keep me grounded, but to elevate me and to get me to look at life through a different lens, right? Like I think about when I was in high school in a very pivotal time in my life, when I was making a decision, do I want to stay here and be here with my mom and my brother and sister, or do I want to leave and go to Mississippi and live with my dad? Because I'd never lived with my dad. That has always been in my life. He's certainly one of my role models, but I've never lived with my dad. And so I had to make that decision. Ultimately, I had to stay because my mom was a single parent after she got a divorce. And so I didn't want her to have to shoulder that load of responsibility by herself. Plus, I was concerned about my sisters and brothers being in New Orleans. So I decided to stay. And at that point in time, God brought somebody into my life. There was a janitor at our school who watched me play. And that janitor was really good friends with a guy named Denton Jackson. Denton Jackson was the head basketball coach at Xavier University in New Orleans, but he was also the head basketball coach of a travel high school basketball team called the New Orleans Jazz. That team would go and play in all the sanctioned tournaments around the country where college coaches could go and watch kids play. That janitor went to Denton Jackson and said, "You need to go see Shane play. I think he'll be a benefit to your team and what you're doing." So he comes to see me play. I had a great game. And after that game, he went over to my mom and said, I want Shane to play on this team. I think it'll help him. He'll become a better player. Most importantly, it'll help him to get recruited so he can accomplish some of his dreams. My mom said, "Listen, it sounds like a great opportunity, but we ain't got no money. So if there's a monetary piece of this, then Shane can't play." And the coach said, "We will find the funding. I'll take care of it. We just need Shane to show up." An angel. Because Vanderbilt doesn't happen without Denton Jackson. Me being the number 9 small forward in the country doesn't happen without Denton Jackson. But the introduction came from a janitor. You see, it's that part of my story that allows me to be able to be effective in boardrooms the same way I am in the hood in New Orleans or here in Nashville. Because I don't see people based on their titles. Every single person can add value to people's life. And that comes from that part of my story. But then I'll never forget the first year I played with them, I went to this tournament. They ranked every single player that was at this tournament. There was 400 players at the tournament. They ranked everybody. And I was number 397. I was horrible. I was literally the top 5 worst players that were there. But going through that experience, I remember clear as day having a conversation with Denton Jackson and saying, "I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I belong here." And he told me, he said, "If you'll commit to doing the work, the next year can be different." A part of this was for you to be exposed to what's possible. So you didn't know that guys across the country were working this hard. All you knew was the people in your neighborhood. So because you was the best one in your neighborhood, you thought you were good. There's another level to this, right? And so being able to see that gave me something now to aspire towards. So I took all of those workouts, everything I saw, everything I got exposed to, and I went back home and I got to work. And I would wake up in the morning, 6 o'clock, get a workout in, go to school. During my lunchtime, I'd get a workout in. After school, I'd work out with my basketball team. And then I'd leave there and go to Xavier University, work out with their basketball team, and then get home late at night and do homework. That's what it cost me to go from being number 397 to being the number 9 small forward in the country. And some people look at that and say, "Well, when did you have time to be a kid?" I get to be a kid now. I drive what I want to drive. I live in a nice house. I got a dog, my wife, I got a family. Now I get to be a kid because I was willing to make the sacrifices then to be where I wanted to be, right? And so it cost something, but there were so many lessons that I learned along the way. I almost named this book "Lessons I Learned Along the Way" because every single stage of my life, it was like God was teaching me things. He was teaching me the value of people. He was teaching me about how to treat people in every space. He was teaching me about professionalism, teaching me how to value small details, right? Like it's not just about the things that you see happening on TV. It's also about the things that happen behind closed doors because we're creatures of habit. What you do with the little things is what shows up on game day. So you got to take care of the process. All of these things God was teaching me along the way. And then I got to a moment where I was literally being recruited by every single school in the country. And people ask me all the time, "Why did you choose Vanderbilt over Kansas, over North Carolina and Duke and LSU and all Mississippi State and all these schools?" And the reason I chose Vanderbilt was because at Vanderbilt, I had an opportunity to not be named after somebody else, to not have to follow in anybody else's footsteps. I can go create my own. And so, and I saw an opportunity for everybody who comes after me to be compared to me instead of me being compared to so many other people, right? And I accomplished that, which is why my jersey's being retired in a few months. I couldn't have done that at another school. And I had coaches and people that was in my life saying you're stupid, you know, you're trying to get to the NBA. You can never get to the NBA from a Vanderbilt. You need to go to one of these big name schools. And my response to them is the same God that took me out of that house where there was domestic violence and child abuse and took me from being not even ranked anywhere on nobody's radar to being the number 9 small forward in the entire country in high school, to now having all of these scholarship offers. The same God that did that is the same God that's going to help me to be successful at Vanderbilt. And I'd be doggone if he didn't blow our minds.
I think that's a good way right there to kind of go into this other segment about how living out that college dream, because I remember so many nights that so many Saturday evenings, I would tell everybody, turn the TV on, Shane is playing. That's my cousin. And he dropped 30 last week and he's gonna drop 30 more. You know, I called people up, had to turn the TV on Saturday evening because Vanderbilt was not really on TV a whole lot. All of a sudden, Vanderbilt was on TV every Saturday. So let's talk to us about that college dream. Let's talk a little bit about that to see, because you already said the same God that got you out of the household, the same God can take you to Vanderbilt, and that same God can take you to the next level. So talk to us about how God showed up and showed out during that time at Vanderbilt.
Well, it was literally the same learning process, right? It didn't start off looking like I was going to be the all-time leading scorer in our school history, right? Like my first 10 games of the season, I played 2-3 minutes a game. I was over there handing out water because I wasn't ready yet. See, I went from playing one position in high school to now having to be a guard in the SEC amongst literally the best basketball players in college. And so God had to show me how to learn the game of basketball, to put in the work, right? And literally what I used was all the things God taught me in high school. To be intentional about my calendar.
Yeah, so you had to go from forward to guard?
I went from playing forward and center to being shooting guard.
And you was how tall?
I was 6'6".
6'6", and they had to go from forward to shooting guard. Okay, Go ahead. I just wanted people to know that. He's a 6'6" shooting guard.
Yep. And so the same schedule that I had when I was in high school is what I had to figure out how to master in this college space. And so I had to get up in the morning and get the work in. I had to literally time out every single moment of my day. I knew how long it took me to walk from one class to the other, how long it took me to walk back to the gym, all of this kind of stuff, right? So that I could maximize this opportunity. And 10 games into the season, I figured it out. It got a lot easier watching film, really being dedicated to the craft. Right. And all of a sudden, 10th game of the season, we're playing Cincinnati on ESPN, and I had 25 points. And I have been praying the whole time. All right, God, I know you ain't brought me out here to Nashville to have me out here sitting the bench. What's going on? Right? Like this is not what you showed me. Like, what is going on? But it was in that process that I learned the value of small details. And it taught me the value of my teammates, because the guys that walked onto our team, those were the guys that had to prepare me for games. So I couldn't look down on them because they wasn't getting no playing time, because I needed them to push me to be as great as I could be every single day. So in that process, God taught me so much. And then once I got to where I was scoring and got a starting spot in the lineup, it was like, okay, now I can turn my focus from just trying to get playing time to how many points a game I want to average, what my percentages need to be for me to be one of the top freshmen. So I ended up making the all freshman team my freshman year, averaged about 10 points a game, just learning, right? My next year, sophomore season, I go in, I made first team all SEC as a sophomore, but it was so much work, being on the shooting gun in the gym for hours, making 1,000 shots, right? 1,000 is a lot. That's a lot of shots to make, not just shoot, make 1,000 shots, not layups. I'm talking about 3-point shots, building that muscle memory. And the whole time I'm in there, I'm working on my condition. I'm tired. I got class coming up. And it was the same thing that I did when I was high school. It was me and God having a conversation. The whole time I'm in there, I'm shooting jump shots. All right, Lord, this is what's going on. We got class coming up. We got this going on. I'm trying to get to the league. It ain't looking this way, right? We just talking. And God is like, just keep putting on the work. Just keep putting in the work. I got you. Same thing I did before, we're going to do it again, right? And I stuck with the process, and God, again, brought some people into my life. He brought Bishop Walker into my life. He brought a guy named King Rice, who is the head coach at Monmouth right now. He was one of our assistants. He came in my junior season, the summer before my junior season. He had played at the University of North Carolina. His best friend was Rick Fox. And he was with Rick Fox when he was playing in the league. So all he did was bring me an NBA type workout schedule. He taught me how to be a pro. If King Rice doesn't come to Vanderbilt, I don't know if I become a pro. King Rice was that kind of leader that he would call me in the morning and say, let's go to the gym. Not get up and go, let's go to the gym. When I was in there running sprints, he over there running with me. When I'm putting up shots, he doing shots with me. And he was a point guard, so he increased my ball handling, but it was a lot of work, right? And he always said, I can't do the work for you, but I'm going to be right here with you, right? And through that process and gaining the confidence, all of a sudden, my sophomore year, first team all SEC, junior year, first team all SEC, and we go to the Sweet 16. Going into my senior year, King Rice was like, dude, you have what it takes to be the best shooting guard in the country. You got to take your conditioning to a whole nother level so that in those games, when everybody else starts slowing down, you just catching your second win. So we committed to conditioning. So now, my senior year, I had taken care of business in the classroom, and Vanderbilt was hard. Probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, graduating from Vanderbilt. But we scheduled my classes such that going into the second half of my senior year, the second semester, I only had one class. That was critical because now when everybody else is in class all day, I could be in this gym getting this work in. I can travel to Chicago and go work out with Tim Grover, who was Michael Jordan's trainer. I can go to New York and work with a ball handling specialist and really get my game tight. So then my senior year, I averaged 20 points a game, and it was the easiest 20 I've ever scored in my life. Because I had already put in the work, right? And then going into my senior night, the best game I ever played, again, me and God having a conversation. That particular day, my only request was like, God, let me show this community, thank you for embracing me. That's all I wanted to do. Let my play on this court show these people that I appreciate them and I love them back. And I'd be doggone if that game didn't look like my whole life. That game, if you can go look this up on YouTube, you type in my name and put in senior night, you'll see this game. I started off at halftime, I had 6 points. I couldn't hit water if I fell out of a boat. It wasn't looking good. We were losing, we were playing Mississippi State, we losing. I think we were down by 12 points, and everybody's looking at me saying, what we gonna do, what we gonna do? And I put my head down, I said, Lord, I know you ain't gonna have me out here like this. You did it before, let's do it again. And I went out in that second half and I finished that game with 42 points and hit a game winner, a three-pointer from 30 feet, right? Best game I've ever played in my entire life. But it was me and God. Yeah, I put in the work, and it was a lot of work, but every step of the way, God brought people in my life that ushered me into the next season and made the dream possible.
Wow. So now we know that you are legendary. And you talk about that in your book. And we know how you got to that legendary status and with the jersey being retired at Vanderbilt, man, that means a whole lot. You give me a date, and I'm going to do everything I can to get there to be a part of that, because that is major to have my cousin, jersey being retired at a major university like Vanderbilt. Now, but it did actually happen. You did actually go from Vanderbilt to the NBA, and then and that's what started the next part of your life. Can you talk to us a little bit about how that becoming legendary, then going on into NBA, and then from NBA on into what you're doing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So at 5 years old, I had this dream of being an NBA player. You know, grandparents used to watch Chicago Bulls. I grew up watching Michael Jordan play, and that's what started me playing basketball, and fell in love with the game. But I didn't know that it was actually possible until I saw that kind of success at the college level. It was amazing to have my family and my best friend there with me in New York, hearing David Stern call my name. It's tears rolling down all of our eyes, and just thanking God for all the sacrifices that it took, all the, everything. That it came down to that moment, and we accomplished the goal. But I was drafted by the Dallas Mavericks, second round pick. I was their only draft pick, and so. But the thing that people don't realize about the NBA is that it's a business. Like, we see the manifestation of the game on game days, and it's exciting, it's vibrant, it's the best players in the entire world. But it's a business. That's the part that I didn't know. That's the part that I didn't account for. And I didn't start playing basketball for the business of basketball. I just love the game. And so when you get engaged in the business part of it, you realize that the players on the floor are the best players in the world. But there's not that big of a gap between the players you see and the players you don't. But the business side of it sometimes dictates the players you see and the players that you don't. And so in that, the Dallas Mavericks were really looking to have some really quick wins and trying to push to win a championship. So they brought in 17 veterans the year that I got drafted. So then that pushed me to go and play overseas. So I go and play in Italy. 10 months out of the year, I'm in another country. It's great. It's amazing. Most people don't get to go and experience other countries like this, right? And here I am from born in Laurel, Mississippi, raised in New Orleans, went to school in Nashville, drafted by the Mavericks, and now I'm international, right? I'm in Italy, I'm in Belgium, I'm in Turkey, I'm in the Czech Republic, I'm in Ukraine, I'm in China, I'm in Japan. I mean, you name it, I've been all over the place. But basketball is a business. And while it was amazing and I had incredible experiences, especially getting a chance to spend time in people's homes in other countries and really engaging in their culture, and I learned so much from all of those experiences. Part of the reason why I retired from basketball after 6 years of playing professionally was because I started to realize that for me, and everybody's not like this, everybody's not like this, but for me accomplishing my dream of getting to the NBA was not about the NBA. And it wasn't even about basketball, but it was literally the lessons that God would teach me along the way that would lead to me being able to do the work that I do now. Mm-hmm. All of those experiences, every single piece of it, I've lived a diverse life. I've been around and been invited into people's homes, rich, poor, wealthy, homeless. I mean, you name it, from every walk of life. And I get an opportunity now because of those experiences to go into companies and talk about diversity and help them to see and understand and celebrate and value the uniqueness that every individual brings to their company. Not from a place of pointing fingers, but getting people to understand that as a company, you can't reach your potential without engaging in diversity. It's not possible.
Mm.
And as a result of you limiting the diversity, you limit your own potential. That don't come from a book. That comes from God teaching me what's possible when we celebrate and embrace the uniqueness that every person brings to the table. I've been able to do workshops around domestic violence and sexual assault and rape and get people not only just talking about the life experiences that they've had, but providing tools and resources for them to overcome their situations, but also to be able to teach these young boys how to value and respect women and girls. I have credibility in all of these spaces because of all the spaces God took me through in my basketball career. I know what's happening in locker rooms across the country because I sat in them. I've been around the most masculine men in the world. I've been amongst the most richest people in the world. I've been around blue collar and white collar and poor and impoverished and folks who are literally busting their butt to make ends meet and have the same values and ideas about what they want to do with their family as everybody else. But the systems that are at play don't allow for people to be able to move up. And I'm able to put that in a language and a lens that people gravitate towards it as opposed to taking a step back. It's amazing to be in a corporate setting with CEOs sharing intimately experiences that they've had over their life and its relationship to diversity. People don't get to do, most people wish that they could go and actually be honest and have that kind of conversation with their CEO or with their supervisor. I get to do this every day, not because I'm so great, but because God was what I like to call perfecting an anointing that he gave me at a young age. This is what I was created to do. And my basketball career gave me the credibility to be able to do that in every single industry.
So he took you through all of that, from family to through church, basketball, college, legendary in college, NBA, 6-year career in the NBA, and he brought you to a place where now you say you have a mission that's worth fighting for. So in your closing statements, let's talk about that mission that's worth fighting for. What are you doing now? What do you look for God to help you to do in the future? Because here it is, at Pearls of Wisdom, we're bringing resources to people. I want people to know that when Shane Foster come to their congregation or come to your workshop, this is what you're getting. Because now the Pearls of Living, we're truly going to be bringing you to a workshop. But maybe somebody else right now saying, I need that somebody like that young man to come and talk about his mission or his ministry to my church or to my people. So what's the mission we're fighting for?
So we got two things. The first thing is that domestic violence doesn't have a face. Every single one of us, whether we believe it or not, we're all connected to at least one woman or girl who is a victim of domestic violence. The data says that 1 out of every 4 women have experienced domestic violence in their lifetime. And more than 15 million children in our country every single year witness abuse in their households or in their communities. And the data says that the boys are more than twice as likely to repeat that behavior. And the girls who witness it are more than twice as likely to become victims. Domestic violence is a learned behavior. And if it can be learned, it can also be unlearned. But most importantly, we can teach people differently. That's the first thing. We have an opportunity and an obligation to teach people how to be in healthy relationships and stop sweeping things under the rug that happened. We know it happened, that's having a long-term impact and causing other trauma. We can talk about it. We can heal from it. and we can ensure that the people in our churches, the people in our congregations, the people in our community know full well how to value and respect women and girls so that we can all get the best we possibly can out of our relationships. That's one. Number two, it's about reconnecting our heads with our hearts when it comes to how we do business. If all across the world, I do these workshops and we talk and we start with values. The reason we start with values is because when you think about what the things we value, integrity, character, treating people with dignity and respect, treat the golden rule, treating people how you want to be treated. If we are employing those things in the workplace, then discrimination doesn't happen. Then racism doesn't happen. Sexual harassment doesn't happen. But far too often, we let the gravitational pull towards mediocrity, but towards the status quo, and that gravitational pull towards peer pressure, we let that pull us away from our values to where we show up in ways that are inauthentic. So now we're discriminating when it comes to hiring that next position, not because we're horrible people, but because we're so concerned about what other people might think if we hire a Black executive. We can talk about those things too. And we can find a way for us to move forward together in a way that's not just about Black and white and not just about gender, but diversity is about everybody. We all actually live very diverse lives. You walk around your kitchen and your bedroom, you see different furniture. When you get ready to go eat, you're gonna go to some different restaurants. You don't eat the same place every day, right? We all live diverse lives. It's only when we start talking about people is diversity hard. Well, we have an opportunity to really create the safe space where we can have meaningful dialogue and put practices in place within the company that make this how we do business. And then we measure everything that we do to create results. That's what I would like to leave people with. Those two things, that we got to reconnect our head with our hearts, and domestic violence is something that we got to change.
Wow. Thank God for you. I hear it all in your voice. You sound like you're showing up little preacher. I said little preacher. No, and then again, on this journey, no telling where God going to lead you. So, I mean, I've been blessed by you tonight. I'm quite sure that all those who are listening have been blessed. It's been a wonderful conversation, and we look forward to doing a whole lot of work with you in the future, because I can just see God doing some wonderful things and taking you through what you've been through and how you got where you are. The map, the roadmap he gave you is certainly a roadmap for many other people. A lot of young people need to follow that today. A lot of young people need to hear tonight what you said and what you experienced. They need to hear about that experience. So trust me, you'll be hearing from us in the future. And we don't take your time lightly. We don't take it for granted. We know you got a busy schedule, so we thank you for taking time out to be with us tonight. So I want to say to our congregants who are listening, should I call you a congregants or should I call you just listeners? To our listeners, thank you for listening. And again, don't forget to put it in the chat. If you would like to be a part of this Dr. Green class we got coming up, you may want to go ahead and put your name out there, because we're going to have limited to the first 100 people. So, but it's starting in January, and by next Sunday, we'll have more information about you, the exact time, the date, and the class will be 5 weeks long, January, February. So again, Shane, any final words?
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a blessing, and continue doing the work that you're doing, bringing resources to people is so critical. And having these real, authentic conversations is critical as well. The last thing I'll say is this: God can only heal that which we reveal. And so we got to get out of this mindset of just, sweeping things under the rug and not talking about it. The way in which we actually create better outcomes, it starts with us just being honest and transparent about what has happened and the best way for us to move forward. Thank y'all so much for having me. I love y'all so much.
Thank you, Shane. God bless you. Thank you for your time. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next Sunday night.